Mark, is he still there? No, he's not.
Yep, I'm here.
Good. Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. So welcome to everyone who wants to join us with their evening on YouTube. Elected members of the committee unable to join the meeting in person, unable to do remotely. However, they do not form part of the quorum. They will not be able to vote and their attendance will not be officially recorded. Although their virtual attendance will be noted in the minutes. Anyone attending remotely must turn on their camera when addressing the members of the committee. With regards to the meeting etiquette, please may I ask you to indicate your wish to speak by raising your physical hand. People online should raise their virtual hand and will monitor the screens for virtual hands. Please note that the chat function has been disabled for this meeting. Colleagues, as usual, it's a busy agenda tonight. Keen to move at pace, adequate time where greater focus is needed. The meeting of the London Borough Crime, Environment and Transport Scrutiny Commission is now called to order. So the first part to do is so expected participants. I'm gonna not go through it now, but as you speak, please introduce yourself and we'll do it that way. Save a little bit of time there, but thank you for coming here. So if we go into the sort of nuts and bolts of the meeting, apologies for absence. I've had Councillor Garfield and Councillor Lee Parkway give me their apologies. Erin, do you have any other apologies?
I have no other than.
Are there any apologies? Okay, great, we'll move on. Any declarations of interest? Do members of the committee have any disclosable in pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest they wish to declare on any matter being considered tonight at this agenda? Clerk to note any declaration. That's a no. Thank you very much. Item number 4, the minutes. The next item on agenda is to approve the minutes of our scrutiny meeting held on November the 19th. Are there any amendments or corrections that members like to propose? Councillor?
Councillor Nate Higgins, Stratford. I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I won't comment on the accuracy, but there's a point in the minutes on page 12, I think, about making dashboards public for maintenance in parks, and obviously that could be done, but it's not noted as a formal recommendation, and I'm worried that that might make that the recommendation.
Noted. Thank you, Nate. Okay, great. We'll move on. So I move that the minutes of the previous meeting to be agreed as a correct record, subject to Councillor Higgins's amendment there. Agreed?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So moving to the first chunky item, it's on residential ASB. This item will focus on reviewing the report on residential and social behaviour services, examining the key findings. I'd like to thank community safety colleagues for the report. I know there's been some challenges in staffing, and I think we need to recognise that and put it on the formal agenda. As again, if something is not done in the questioning because of that factor, just say so and politely come back, supply us information. And remember, this is about giving the residents a bit more flavour about what we're doing. This is the opportunity to explain to residents what we're doing on their behalf. Yep. And for you to explain the good work you're doing. So we take the reports as read. My committee has read the report. However, I'm going to ask you just to introduce the report, Councillor Verdi.
Yep.
Do that, and will Sean and Lisa take a couple of minutes just to give us an overview. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Verdi, Cabinet Member for Community Safety and Crime and Cabinet Member for Housing Needs, PRS and Parental Sector. Yeah, correct. And Green Street Westwood. Yeah, sorry, apologies. So yeah, just want to present this report that's come to you. So thanks to Scrutiny, obviously, for helping to come up with the questions. And just to formalise in terms of some of the work that we have been doing within ASB, you'll be able to see some of the proactive work that we've put in place. Recognise, like you just mentioned, Chair, some of the structural and operational work that needs to be put into a much better position. Throughout the report, you can see a lot in detail in terms of data, in terms of some of the key areas of focus, some of the tactical things put into consistently tackle ASB. I don't want to take up too much time because I know you value your time and I want to make sure that the scrutiny has time to interject into this. I think one of the key things, if you look at, there's quite a lot of appendices. So in terms of transparency of what we're trying to do in terms of organisation as a council, recognising the challenges we face to ensure the fact that we have restrictions of ASB. I don't know if I want to add too much, but I would, if Sean wants to add a few bits more, for 30 seconds to it, then we can go straight into.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Councillor. So Sean McDermott on the community safety. Be here today. As Councillor Verdi said, we've tried to produce a comprehensive report. We've included a lot of appendices, mainly to sort of highlight the in-depth processes and policies that exist around ASB. There's quite a lot there to sort of unpick at times and work through. What I would say with the particular team, comparison to some local authorities, and it's very different. You'll probably find there's 32 different flavours across London. Some places have dedicated teams, some places have dedicated tenancy enforcement teams, some have ASB teams. Our team as a whole, which actually is a relatively smallish team, probably about 12 or so officers there or thereabouts, deals with a broad range of themes. So we are aware that certain areas, for example, probably need a little bit more focus, and I'll be quite upfront around, for example, how we deal with statutory noise and noise nuisance out of hours. So one of the things I'm really sort of proud of, and it's taken us a little bit of time to do, is restructuring the service. So over the last sort of 7 or 8 months, we've actually restructured the service. So from April, we will be introducing a very limited at the moment, and sort of a pilot scheme around Friday, Saturday night working for the team. That itself has had some challenges around staff who obviously used to work in a certain way, working on day shift, and for some staff that's not actually where they see themselves going. So we've actually lost a number of staff. So the process, we're going through that churn of staff and recruiting, which is, you know, working and going through at pace. But that's something I know certainly members, particularly masters, very much asking for, and it's been on the cards for some time. So I'm really pleased that we are going to be delivering that. The other thing I'll draw out is we were inspected along with housing colleagues by the housing regulator, social housing regulator. Let's sort of be complacent and say we had a full bill of health, but we actually came off relatively well in terms of how they felt we did with ASB. Notwithstanding, I think things we should be doing and can be doing. We know that we've got a little bit of a gap, and we could be doing more around hate crime, and that feeds into Lisa's other area of service, which is the community safety team. And it's another area I'm very ambitious about, is trying to do more work with the other social landlords in the borough and making sure we're supporting them, but we're also providing training about how they deal with ASB better. So that's all I really wanted to say, Chair. It's not been without its challenges. There's a lot more we can do, and we're trying to move forward in a positive.
So I'm Lisa Rosier, Head of Community Safety and Corporate Resilience. In my 7th month now, and you know, really proud of the team. Particularly, they've been working through a number of challenges, particularly with staffing. But having met the team, I know that they're very committed and dedicated to their role and to the work that they're doing. Some of the things that I have a new interim manager coming in, started yesterday. I'm very excited to have her because she has a lot of experience in public sector housing and looking at how we can strategize and get more community input, doing a lot more work within the community, and making sure we're being effective. Also, I've reached out to some of the heads of the different services so that we have a oversight steering committee, which we've just had our first meeting, so that we can address any issues between us rather than perhaps emails that go backwards and forwards with some of our team. It can come to us, and then we can make decisions at our level so that we can address anything that might come up, be more effective and immediate.
Brilliant. Just to kick off, I'll open Chair's privilege. One of the issues you've got is resource constraints. But I've noticed housing seem to have a lot of staff in their housing liaison officers. And I'd wondered, I see in the notes, you talk about a service level agreement being started, you've got restructuring at the same time. I've just been probing, is there more what can be done to use the housing liaison officers, because they have a locational basis, they got their patches, and you guys fly in when there's a problem. And I'd wondered, is there more what can be done to use their knowledge and more their resources? And I'll let you open that, and perhaps members can come in, Sabia can come in after.
Yeah, sure. So it's something, Councillor Verdi, which is really nice because he's got both portfolios now. So basically, he's like,
great idea, Chair, because I think, you know, this is what I always want, that this is a space for innovation, as you rightly touched upon, in terms of like the resources getting tight. We have to maximise what we have as a council. You know, collectively as a council, as we work together as a partnership, like Lisa mentioned, efficiency. So one of the key things I looked at is how do we get the best out of, say, housing services? HLOs. Some of our teams that are dedicated it. And, I started looking at our history of what was there, and Sean will probably go into the details of this, of our agreements and things that we could probably change. So in terms of detail of trying to look at that, those are already underway, which is really important, because I think what you'll recognise, which members will probably know, whether it's estates, whether it's residential, teams are quite tight, but the eyes and ears are some of the people that go into these blocks, some of the people that do site visits, tenancy satisfaction measurements that are taking place now. They're the ones that see a lot of this stuff. So it's actually being proactive, and now the wheels are already in motion, and Sean could probably contribute in terms of what's being done at this moment in time.
Very quickly. So we're looking at particularly work with the neighbourhood response officers, which are actually only 2 to 3 members of staff. I think one of those is a problem solving officer. We do call upon to do our designing out crime audits as well. So there's a bit of an overlap with the different elements. So obviously Lisa's team, the ASB team, if I use that, tend to deal with basically the behaviour of tenants in properties. You've got the neighbourhood response officers that tend to deal with inside of a block. And then you've got the community safety enforcement team, which is the other part of the business. Obviously, my uniform staff that generally do the the wider public spaces around the states. And obviously, there is a lot more coming together, particularly under the new NICE model, where the teams are attending those regular meetings. And Lisa set up a new ASB steering group. So one of the things we're looking to do is the neighbourhood response officers to actually warrant them with powers, because at the moment they can't issue community protection warnings and notices. So I'm just reviewing all the delegations at the moment, so we're able to delegate them along with training and make sure they've got the conflict management skills.
There is more, but I'd go to Councillor Kamali. There is more we can do.
I think so. The bit I'm not overly sure at the moment is with the neighbourhood liaison, so the housing liaison officers.
But the housing liaison officers, I think that's obviously a conversation to have with housing colleagues, right?
Yeah.
Because I think the main thing you'll recognise is the fact that they need to do the audit, the data collection of what they need to do for TSMs. There's still a lot of work to do that with that, Chair. That's just being honest, right? So I recognise what their challenges are, but where there is scope, which Sean mentioned, it was an area which we can focus on. Phase 1, you could say, is the neighbourhood response team, which, as I said, is 3-4 people. But once we upskill people, you might be able to get a lot of actual good traction that comes of it. The next phase, if a conversation can be had, where we can build HLOs and so forth, I suppose it's another thing in trail, right?
If I bring Councillor,
But step 1, step 2, but recognise that.
I will say, I keep hearing the word "we are one council" mentioned at cabinet. And I do think there's a little bit of silo things have crept in there. So I'll leave it to you, but I think there's more politeful nudge that can be done, because obviously these people have a occasional focus, like they might look after
geographic quadrants.
And you said it, Councillor Verdi, they're the eyes and ears. I think there's more that can be done, and and I think it's up to committee to decide. I think there was a recommendation about nudging you politely in that area to consider the HLOs, additional resource, and the eyes and ears factor. I want to move on. Councillor, come on.
Hey, just a quick question. I mean, everything sounds good in theory and all the policies, everything is brilliant, but it ends up on the shelf because in reality, we have all the policies, we do all the tick box exercise, but when a resident comes to you and says they have an ASBO happening in their building, now when they phone up the council goes, it's not their responsibility, it lies on the police. When the resident calls the police says it's on the council. So from a resident's point of view, who is responsible and how is the council working with the police to ensure residents feel safe? Because every time a resident puts in a complaint, it gets logged, but nothing gets done. The offence carries on repeating after repeating, but who are we holding accountable, and how is the council providing assurance to the residents that they are safe?
Okay, so I suppose I've got first-hand experience of what I call demand ping pong, because particularly around night working, because the police, someone will phone up the police and say I've got noise nuisance at night. The police will quite rightly say it's the council, and at the moment we haven't got anyone to deal with that. So then it becomes a challenge, and the police haven't got responsibilities. I would say it's a collective responsibility around ASB. So whoever gets the complaint will have to determine whether they've got a responsibility to deal with it. We obviously in our side we get quite a large amount of complaints. I think it's like well over 9,000 to 10,000 complaints a year. So we can't actually deal with every single complaint straight away. A lot of that is would start with very low level noise nuisance. And I'm not saying that's not impacted. So obviously, as you can see from the the stats provided, often the process would be, if it's low level noise and there's no obvious risk at that point, we would serve advisory notices.
I was referring to drugs, not noise.
Sorry?
Drugs.
So things, for example, drugs. So we'd have to, we do work very carefully with the police, and obviously that's not just Lisa's team, that's not Alison's team, and obviously the neighbour response officers. The new NICE model hopefully looks to address more. There's repeat issues in a particular block. Obviously, the police are at that meeting, Alison's team, Lisa's team is at that meeting, and they discuss those issues. Got no direct powers around. We can't search people for drugs, so we often have to rely on police. We can't arrest people for drugs. So again, that's a policing responsibility. So we have those good relationships with the safe neighbour teams, particularly. So if there is an issue like that, then we will look to do it. In terms of assurance, again, I can't say for every single case, and there will be cases where the residents don't feel they're getting the response they need, and I totally understand that. We do look at the repeat cases as well, because that's where I think there's a lot more risk. Now, some of those repeat cases, there'll be people that phone up and we just literally can't do anything about their case. For those that we can do stuff about it by checking who's phoned a number of times, they're the cases that now get flagged up and monitored. So on a monthly basis, I look at the top 10, and that's basically residential cases. I look at the top 10 private sector housing cases that Helen Masterson's team, and I now look at the top 10 licensed premises as well. So if there's something coming up and we've had multiple cases, say, for example, relating to a pub, I will say to the licensed team, which is not currently mine, but will be, what we're doing about that and get assurance. And if I'm not happy, usually everything is in place, then I'll be saying to the police, right, we need to do something on here. We need to get CCTV to monitor, we'll do extra patrols. So we do try and build those assurances in place. Obviously, once we can start doing more of the Friday, Saturday night working, we're going to have to triage that very carefully, because the concern I've got is opening up like an out of hours noise service where people can dial in. We will not be able to meet likely demand, and that's going to generate complaints. So we are going to be very careful about how we introduce that and look to basically triage what gets reported normally. So these processes are in place, but we've also got to recognise the volume as well. We can't deal with everything.
Can I just do a supplementary if I can on your question?
So hopefully that gives you, but what I would say is that obviously every case is on its individual merits as well. So if it's a drugs case, we would be basically, I'd be asking Alison's team to go in if it's in the block. If it's in a particular property, then we'd probably serve an advisory letter. We'd obviously speak into the police, and they, if it was that serious, the police might even look at a warrant. And obviously, if it's a private rented sector, we'd be working with the private rented sector team and also looking at liaison with the landlords and saying, right, okay, what's your responsibility here if it's a breach?
Can I just, as you were talking, I went on Newham's website to report ASB. At the same time, I went to the police's. Right. I think there's a little bit more work we can do. If you go to the Newham website, you click on it, then you have to go into welcome to the new My Newham portal.
You have to
No one is going to do that, right? That's just saying to residents, go away. If I go to the police, it says, is it a crime happening now? Is there a risk to life and property? If I clicked and said it's ASB, it said in this situation, we'd like you to call 101 and they will log in. But perhaps just to bring Councillor Kamali's question to the answer, surely can we just look at how the person is triaged on the website?
Yeah,
yeah. I think, and also this thing about logging to your Newham account, no one's going to do that. If I've got drum and bass playing upstairs in my house, and it's a very good music.
What's your address?
I have an account and that. And I think we're missing a trick by looking at the police, not by looking at the police website, seeing how they report. And perhaps you can do a hand off or hand to.
I think, Chair, honestly, I totally agree. I mean, we have got for our existing residents, we use like things like the Noise app, which makes it a little bit more easier to use. I think one of the things, and hopefully with the transformation that's happening across the council, and we were chatting about this just earlier today, it'd be really nice for residents to be able to log onto a website and almost like sort of, not necessarily a live chat, but basically talk yourself through and take yourself through the journey.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse being a resident and a consumer myself when you spend ages on the phone, you don't get an answer, you eventually get through, and it's like the computer says, some things we don't actually deal with, or we can't deal with, like impact noise. Let's be upfront and tell people that first and deal with.
I'm going to bring in Councillor Kamali again. bring Shan to.
I just wanted a clarity around CCTV.
Sure, yeah.
Firstly, how are they going to be used if they were to be implemented? And secondly, how much do they cost, considering we are going through a budget crisis? Are they practical solution to every place? And are we going to be becoming like the big brother around Newham, putting cameras everywhere?
No, so that's the question. So the thing is, we're not, we've got quite a substantial system. I can't remember, I think we've got 600 cameras in existence. There's some parts of the borough, if I had the money, I'd like to put some more cameras in because we've had development and we haven't had necessarily the infrastructure to go with it. I think E20 is probably an area where we know we'd like to put some cameras. It's not just the camera cost of putting a camera in, obviously the camera itself, the wiring, the power. There's licensing that goes with that as well. What I'm trying to do is we've purchased in the last sort of six to 7 months, we've got a dozen or so tasking 4G cameras. So they basically transmit over mobile phone signals. You still need a power source, but it's a lot easier to move around. So as part of the new NICE model.
I'm going to bring in Councillor Higgins in a minute.
Yeah, I'll wrap up very quickly, Chair. So as part of that, we've now got them listed. So basically, if we've got a particular issue, whether it's in a block, public space, anywhere we can deploy it, we can look, if we can get power in, we can put a mobile camera. It's a temporary fix because the idea is I want to capture evidence that we can deal with. I don't want to put a camera there and it becomes default.
All right, Councillor Higgins.
Thank you.
Then I've got Councillor Furdus, Councillor Rush, Councillor Femi, Councillor Day.
Chair, I have a couple of questions. Oh,
No, that's fine.
No, Nate, you go.
okay, thanks, Chair. I have a couple of questions. Is that okay?
Go on.
Okay, page 106 of the supplementary agenda, it's about the emergency rehousing policy. It says that that the victim of ASB would be expected not to be in debt in order to be eligible for emergency rehousing. That seems incredibly risky to me. I don't know why we're considering debt when it comes to emergency rehousing because somebody isn't safe. The criteria here is about like immediate threat to life. That's the first question, Chair.
Let him answer the first question.
Okay, sure. Is the third bullet point from the bottom on page 106?
Next question.
Details about the three lease or not.
Have you got the reference?
MGov doesn't work for me, so.
Dawn, you got it?
I can read it out.
So is it the requirement for the applicants to have a clear rent account and no other housing is also removed?
Sorry?
Is it that paragraph?
Yes, this victim will be expected to have a clear rent account and no other housing debt in line with the CBL criteria in order to be eligible for emergency rehousing.
I will have to come back
Yeah.
to you on that. I think that's a housing policy that we comply with rather than something that we've implemented. So I'll have to come back with that. I mean, I think from the reading of the under violence and harassment panel section, and I will double check, it does say that the requirement for have a clear rent account and other housing debts is also removed.
That's for domestic abuse.
Yeah.
Or threat to life.
Yeah. So I would assume that would be exactly the same for threat to life. Okay. Well, I will double check and come back to you on that. So because I'm not.
Are we clear on what you're coming back on, Sean?
Yes, so it's just about, because I'd have nervousness about that myself.
Yeah,
I'll double check that that's not the case. Yeah.
You just read out what you're coming back on, Sean, so we're clear.
Yeah, so it's Chair, it's basically around whether someone should have a clear debt record and whether they're entitled to some emergency rehousing apart from domestic abuse. So I just think we need to clarify threat to life and domestic abuse apply equally, i.e. that doesn't come into account.
Okay.
Sean, just to obviously you have to check, I get that, but in principle, you get the problem that should not come into.
No, I totally agree. So let me double check on that because that.
Second question, Nate?
The second question was about the land licensing scheme. Right now, the Water, Stratford Olympic Park and Royal Victoria are not covered by that.
Yep.
Obviously, that's a big funder for the ASB team. Government's removed their veto over the land licensing scheme and through the English Devolution Bill. Are we intending to expand the scheme to cover those two wards?
Yes or no?
We have the highest proportion of private rented sector in the.
It's not a straightforward yes or no at the moment, but spoken to colleagues and obviously there's determinants of the licensing scheme. It has to meet one or four, there's four different parts to it. One of them is based on crime and ASB profiles. So the data is being looked at the moment by Helen and the team. Stratford Olympic Park, you mentioned a reference, so working closely.
Victoria are the two wards that aren't covered.
Yeah, so Royal Victoria and Royal Albert, in terms of data, from what I've seen, the threshold there might be a gap, right? So in terms of Olympic Park, but also I don't want to give,
Okay, so are we saying they're not covered by the schemes now,
they're not
but we are building the data evidence based
correct.
future licensing in the
Right,
future?
yeah, and those have to meet specific criteria
Okay.
for it to come into place. There's four different components.
Isn't that guidance though?
Sorry?
Government's removed their veto over it, so they've issued guidance.
Yeah,
But it made it our decision as far as I understand.
at the moment, I understand, and it might change. I'm looking at it.
Okay, I say, we're not gonna solve,
Yeah,
not gonna solve it, but right,
yeah.
what I've got is there's no licensing in two areas,
No,
by collecting the data.
correct.
When is the next relicensing timeline? When is the next, when,
It just starts off another 4 years.
Are you saying we have to wait?
hold on. So,
Licensing just got renewed at this moment in time.
okay, so the next time would be in 4 years' time.
The cycle is 4 years, isn't it, right?
Yeah.
Generally.
Could you just so we got this correct, could you come up with the bullet point, say the next time?
But we might be able to, like I said, I think there's a point that I just make is there's scope to do, like I said, questions would have been asked with colleagues in PRS. Because I had literally a meeting 2 weeks ago about this, because the question was asked. I didn't start from colleagues, as I say, it's a shame that colleagues from housing are not here, but seems to have it is what the scope is possible.
Okay, so can you come back?
I can come back in terms of,
Brilliant.
because some of it is dependent on data.
Fine. If you can come back,
Yeah, that's fine.
let us know. I think the issue, if there is scope for us to put them into licensing before the 4 year period.
There is, Chair, because
Right.
that
Okay.
4 years applies to the existing
Okay, Nate?
scheme. Just introduce a new
Nate?
scheme, just.
Hey, okay,
Just gonna say, yeah, just
Right.
based on the criteria that,
Right. Can you just come back with the criteria?
yeah, that's fine, yeah,
We'll put it in the minutes next time.
because it was asked.
All right, Nate, I'm gonna go on to the next question. Shantu?
Okay, thank you. Page number 7 and where the resignation team is made up to 12 dedicated officers who are here for residents during regular office time from Monday to Friday. While they may able to handle a lot of cases within these hours, but we know that especially those related ASB happening outside the normal office hours. Because we see more incidents in the evening time after 6 PM. So how can we best support our residents and carry out investigations outside of our standard office hours, please?
Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah.
So, so the officers will, we triage, and so it'll come through, and they'll be assigned to the team, look at the different priorities, whether it's category 1 or 2, and then they'll be asked to contact the resident to get to terms of complaint, provide some information, advice and actions. And you're right, as we've identified earlier, at the moment they're Monday to Friday. We do have Alison's team, who is the community enforcement team, and they work until, is it midnight or 1 a.m.? Midnight some nights. So they're on shifts, and they're the actual officers that look at the environmental side of things. So they are out there. But one of the things that we did was that there is that need, and as Sean's talked about, Saturday night, so that we can actually go out, take a look and listen to see what's happening, so that we have that to address some of those issues.
Okay.
And we haven't started that yet, but that's something that we're looking at.
Thank you. Simon?
Thank you, Chair. Similar lines. Did I mishear, or was I correct in hearing you say you don't actually have dedicated noise teams currently?
So what we have is we have one team that services everything, councillor,
So
which is one of the challenges.
my question was actually going to relate to that. My residential street has an impact. Every Wednesday, every Monday, they have noisy parties not saying anything illicit's going on there, and it is a scenario, it's not casework. It's a scenario. You go down there, knock on the door on the following day, you send them a letter, and they go, we haven't had any, we're not doing noisy parties. A few neighbours complain, and that's about it. How are you going to prove it if you're not actually going to catch them in the act? And do you have the equipment to?
Yeah.
How are you going to get that equipment there at 3 o'clock at 3 a.m. if you don't have teams available to monitor it as in the evidence?
Yeah, so you're exactly right, Councillor. This is a bit of what we've inherited, and this is no fault of the officers themselves, but they generally do a range of different things. So the challenge is they basically the tenancy enforcement for housing. So we get funded by housing, we get private rented sector funding, and we get HRA funding. That's split between the two enforcement teams, the uniform team and the ASB team. But basically any tenancy enforcement activity is generally done by the ASB team. So there's a lot of work that they have to do in the day, as well as the fact we've got out of hours noise. Just touching on both questions, if I may, just for clarity, the team will do, if they can, they will do some later visits, but they don't provide at the moment like what would be classed as a response service. So if a resident phones up and says, not in the evening, I appreciate like 2 o'clock in the morning, but if there's a need, like, they want to go and see a resident at 6 o'clock, the team will flex their shifts to go and speak to that resident. But obviously what the issue you're referring to is about trying to identify, which comes back to your question about noise happening at the time, which is what we don't have. So the restructuring which I've done, which has involved new job descriptions, new allowances, losing staff because they can't work nights because that's not what they've been set up to do, recruiting staff and retraining them to be able to deal with statutory noise. That's all the processes that we've been doing. Alongside that, I've had to train them in conflict resolution because they don't do as much as that first aid and obviously that type of activity. So that's going to be in place for April. We started because of all the other demands on the team. We're only doing Friday, Saturday nights. If I was being honest, the demand picture is like most of London, apart from the West End, Thursday to Sunday. But if we put the staff on Thursday to Sunday, there wouldn't be enough staff to service the stuff they've got to do in the day because we pay for housing to do stuff in the day as well. So this is why I'm saying, so some of the councils do have a dedicated noise service and they've had that for some time. From the history, as I understand it, that got removed by the council some years ago. So obviously we're in a position with a smaller staff.
Specifically related to
Yeah.
this, I'd be very small.
Yeah, so just I want reassurance that you have an action plan. I would like to know in our next meeting or in relevant meeting, you are doing something regarding this matter, please.
Well, hopefully council, just because I've said I've just gone through 7 months of doing a restructure with the unions. And we've also got an improvement plan from the regulator, not identifying anything major, but just to reassure, and there is an action plan in place.
Do you think the plan you're doing at the moment has been completed?
So the restructure.
Structure's completed.
Yeah.
Right. And the new SLA with the new team will be operational when?
So basically with the introduction of the Friday, Saturday nights, it's going to be in April.
Okay.
The reason we've done that, Chair, just is again, there's a little bit around officer safety. It's a rota system. So the team would be working.
Can you provide an update? We meet in, I think it's the 15th of April approximately. Can you provide a short update, not war and peace, more than 2 pages? Just restructuring has been done. This is the new service, and we can circulate that around the team, around the committee. We can update members that way.
Absolutely fine.
Okay, fine. Councillor, let me.
Maybe you've mentioned this, if so, sorry about that. You talk about action plan, and I heard you talking about drug issue and stuff like that. I know drug issue is the main problem around here. Now, I know council tenants, if they find with drug issue, they might be evicted.
Mhm.
But what happened to leaseholder, council leaseholder? And how many times can you report a drug issue before action is been taken?
That's the question.
Again, it would probably depend on the individual case, to be fair, council, around what type of drugs is, the extent and the impact, and what we would then do as a team would then liaise with the housing team around particularly leaseholders. So I couldn't give you a definitive saying it's 3 cases. What I would also say, and again, it's not making any excuses, but areas is the court system is actually jam-packed at the moment.
Yeah.
So that means that any enforcement action that goes to court does take a hell of a long.
Just a supplementary on that, in the notes, you gave us a list from tenancy orders down to letters, right? But there's no hierarchy or chronology or flow chart, right? It'd be helpful if you put them in a flow chart, right? So for example, on that question, if a resident is found and it's like open drug, county lines house, so first offence, they get X, second time they get X, and the third time they get the tenancy taken away or whatever. I think part of the answer is there's a lack of certainty in what the sanctions are. You've listed the sanctions in the report, you haven't put them in a hierarchy, you know, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and you're out, son, sort of thing. So yes, the answer is we haven't got that. It needs to be specific. You haven't got the policy sitting behind it as to will they get hoofed out. Councillor O'Day.
Thank you for speaking about the out-of-hours service. So I want to ask, first of all, do you have the money to pay for this in a sort of long-term sustainable way? And also, I wanted to ask that, as you've said, there's a risk that it might get overwhelmed with service, and then it might start getting a lot of complaints. But at the same time, if we're going to pay for this, we want it to be effectively. So how is it that you're going to roll this out carefully so that it is not overwhelmed? And then my second question is on the good neighbourhood agreement, that we're going to try and have mediation and conversations between tenants where there's conflict. So I'm a bit sceptical about this, because say, for example, you have a tenant and you have a landlord who are in dispute. So the landlord has tenants and I'm not even a new one, for example, and you can't reach that landlord. How is that going to happen? Or for example, if the conflict is between two residents tenants, but the issue is actually like children and you can't keep the children still.
Okay, your
How
question.
do you deal with that? Or just one example, like if one tenant hasn't got the capacity to engage in that conversation.
Those are the two questions.
That's a good idea. Is there anything else?
Thank you, Thelma.
Yes, sure. So I've got to remember the first question now. So it's like, so what I would say is we're not investing any additional money into the service. It's using existing funds. So that's the part of the reason I'm treading really carefully, because we've got quite a large demand, as you can see. Friday, Saturday nights is something that we haven't had additional investment for. So my experience run services before is that obviously if you've got one car out, which in essence what we'd have a double crew car out on a Friday, Saturday night. If you do an advertised service, you're going to get probably multiple residents phoning up. Now, there's nothing worse if you put a phone call in and basically the car doesn't get to you because they've got 5 other jobs. You've got limited time. It's only going to be up to like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning they're working, which is reasonable. So the concern I've got is introducing something that suddenly becomes a source of complaints and then we have the casework associated with the complaints, which I don't think is appropriate. If we get an additional resource, and it's not to say that that couldn't be a discussion in future, coming back to your point, Councillor, about HRA and things like that, but we still need the staff to do it.
Second question.
The second question, and I'm not necessarily an expert on good neighbour agreements, but they are seen as an element of good practice as part of a toolkit. So it does rely on consent. You can't necessarily force it because it's an agreement. So
just to share supplementary in there, surely a tenant has a tenancy agreement, which must be good standard of behaviour, right? So secondly, what are we doing to enforce standards of behaviour of a tenant, the council tenant? What are we doing there?
yeah, so again, every case, please, I'm not trying to make excuses, but you've got to look at it on a case by case basis around, for example, what's the level of evidence? A good neighbour agreement, because ultimately what we want to try and do in all enforcement is behaviour change. We don't really want to take enforcement action because there is a potential. If you evict someone, then do we have to actually rehouse them, and that does become someone else's?
Say no, but that's my.
Or say no, but that wouldn't be something we necessarily be able to do in a lot of cases, particularly if there's welfare issue, like if there's children or if there's some capacity issues. So a good neighbour agreement often the time, and it can also be associated with getting mediation. So one of the things we look about, is it valuable, and what about mediation service that we can introduce to do that? So you can put an independent facilitator in and get the neighbours to identify what the issues. For example, a lot of domestic noises, people putting washing machines on at the wrong time of day. Understanding why that takes place. Someone doesn't know someone works shifts, someone doesn't know they've got kids. The other issue I would say in a lot of newer builds now is soundproofing. And you've probably experienced that if you live in an older property like myself, you can't hear anything. You go to some of the newer properties in the middle of a flat, putting on your washing to save money at 3 o'clock in the morning, which other people would do without issue. And COVID's a big driver. More people working at home, they're more susceptible to noise during the day.
Thank you, Sean. I'm going to go into second round. Councillor Kamali.
I'm going to move away from ASBO. I mean, Newham celebrates diversity, and we have lots of people from different backgrounds, different like protective characteristic and everything else. But what was really mind-boggling is the regulator's report on hate crime. It was so weak. What are we as Newham doing to make our resident feel safe and protective? Because obviously hate crime, I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's more than ASBO at the moment in Newham. So what are we actually doing? Because it's on the increase, and just anyone could be attacked.
Kamali read my mind because I wrote down hate crime.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not lost us on council. I mean, what I would say, I would double check the stats, but my last count, I think we've seen a reduction in hate crime over the last year. If we talk about broader hate crime, we know a lot that's been driven by geopolitical incidents, particularly around the.
Sean, can I just, what did the regulator see which alerted their senses?
I think I think there's an issue around we weren't particularly well flagging the issue, and Lisa can probably come in on. So that was an issue. We've got a system. So basically, our system is not particularly good. And being honest, we've got a system that hasn't been upgraded for
Uniform, right?
Yeah, it's a system that's used across the.
Blaming the system, are you?
No, the councillor, but it does link to a lot of things. For example, I know you're very data driven as much as I am. We can't get data off the system as much. So it's really, so this has taken a lot longer to do because the system doesn't enable us.
Can I manage the system?
Can I just say something? Sure. You read my mind. I am data driven, but I'm also a person that takes responsibility, right?
Yep.
So therefore, when I read the report, which is uniform, I know that in the report, you've got these working groups, you've got a workaround on the system. I get that. And I know it's in the report you gave us. There's something about risk assessment templates and risk assessment being raised. So can I just ask, because it is concerning about hate crime, we can't have computer didn't say yes or no. Can we fix that quite soon? Because it might be data for us, but that's someone's life at the other end of the phone who's raised that, right?
Absolutely. And as I said, I know, again, I'm very orientated, and Lisa can talk about a bit more detail, but in essence, I've asked for a corporate uniform steering group. That's been set up now. So we've had our first meeting, and there's another meeting, I think next week. There's a number of users on uniform.
Before Lisa comes, I'm going to let Councillor McCartney come in with a supplementary, and then Lisa could probably answer your question at the same time. So if you be brief from your question.
I just wanted clarity. Did you say that hate crime has decreased? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I've done certainly certain areas of types of hate crime. I can get it up. I'll get the bit into.
Yeah, because I can give you example of lived experience where hate crime has increased on a regular basis. So for you to actually say hate crime has decreased, that's not true.
Savia, hold on. It might be, they're not undermining what may happen out there, but it may be one issue of reporting.
Yeah,
that person.
That's right.
And the second point is, once the person reports, does the uniform system correctly log the concern? I don't think you're undermining.
Oh, please don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been subject to hate crime as well. It's not, and I know it gets underreported, and there's a lot of people in this room that have had it. So, and I'm not underplaying because one hate crime is enough. What I'm saying is the reported ASB we get, it's not just because of the residential side, which I'll come on to very quickly, is that we have seen a decrease in that. And I think that the increase we did see in terms of particular types of hate crime has been particularly linked to certain geopolitical. That's all I'm saying, Councillor. So please don't get it. We know, and Lisa's obviously got on the other side of the business with community safety. We've done a hate crime survey. We've got a lot of feedback from residents around that. What the challenge is, and I think the regulator picked up, is we haven't got particularly good systems or residential ASB to flag up the hate crime. So challenge.
So not undermining, I'm just trying to summarise what we're going here. I'm looking at Councillor Kamal and see if I've got this right. We're not undermining the issue of lived experience and the nature of hate crime. What we're saying, our reporting systems could be and should be better. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, and then there's also the hate.
That's fine.
Yep, that's exactly fair. Yep.
Yeah, I think hit the nail on the head. It's about that confidence of reporting.
Yeah.
And look, grateful for people that mentioned a lot of people have gone through hate crime, you know, people, obviously I don't make it personal, but even people like myself, right? So I think there's something really important about the confidence of reporting.
Yep.
I think what we need to really showcase to people is, and Lisa probably touched on it, but the survey that was carried out and information that came from it is about who we report it to.
Good.
And the right people.
Okay.
I think that's a
Get
really
that. Now, because of the importance of the issue,
Yeah.
I'll go back to councillor Kamali. Are you happy with the answers and the actions coming forward to your answer?
Not really, because I don't really see an action, because we're saying that the server isn't good or we're not really logging it, lack of confidence or lack of trust. But then what are we doing to build that confidence, build that trust, build that service where people are confident enough to reach out?
Sure. So Lisa, come on, because we
Yeah.
can touching on.
Lisa?
Go on.
Yeah, so one of the things, I just had a meeting yesterday, because of the way that the system in uniform is currently built, we can't extract some of that data that we need to know if we're being effective and our services, which came up, you know, with hate crime. And so we haven't launched this yet, but there's we're working with the Power BI, we're working with Helen's team because who have expertise in this, and Afzal, who wrote the report, has been working with her technicians, her data technicians, to come up with what we need specifically for ASB so that we can get accurate figures. And one of the things that we'll be addressing is how do we document hate crimes and how do we get specific about it? And so the database of the Power BI has been very good. I've just got some samples of how we can break things down, graphs, things,
Okay.
and we have discussed about.
Okay, so councillor Kamali's question was about confidence of reporting and a robust system. And what we're saying, we've identified the challenge.
Yes.
And there's a piece of work coming forward to fix it. So the second question is when it will be fixed? When will the system, the uniform system, will be of a robustness where it provides the confidence which councillor Kamali mentioned in her question?
Well, I'm not sure with uniform, because we do need super users, and I think we're down to one. There's only about 1 or 2 people, I think, in our system that can actually use it, but for the training. But this Power BI is going to be separate, but we're pulling out information, extracting that.
So if I can, because I just want to give you some reassurance. So I think we've got to take hate crime in the broader context. I think what we're trying, the nervousness I've got at the moment is we're talking about residential ASB that has got an hate crime element, and I think councillor, you're talking about hate crime more generally. So the bit we've got a challenge is around. Currently, when we deal with residential ASB that gets recorded on uniform, it's very difficult to record and report on what is a hate crime incident. The officers, when they speak to the person, will obviously identify that and will link in with the police. Absolutely.
Right.
On the broader piece, obviously hate crime is hate crime. So generally, we would encourage people to report it to the police because there's a criminal offence there. So if we get a report, we can either pass it on to the police or we encourage the resident. So they're the two different things. So go on, Chair, sorry.
Right. I think some very important points have come out from the discussion, and I've learned a bit more intuitively about the uniform system. So again, I'm going to ask you for a note, right? Because there's a lot you just said, and I want it captured for prosperity, right? I'm gonna suggest something here. If members were to sit with you for half an hour at some point in the future when this system is robust, would you welcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, the fact that scrutiny is noted, I've
Okay.
pushing on the uniform system.
Therefore,
Yep.
I'm an invitation to scrutiny members. I think greater confidence will come once we've seen the system in front of us after they've fixed it. So there's an invitation there from officers. I think I'm saying no more than half an hour, 45 minutes to look at the system. So you can see the system and what they're talking about. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, if there's one thing, just because as I said, I'm conscious of keeping to time, but obviously not losing sight of things. There are other things that sit outside this. So, for example, there is without acronyms, but there is a community risk management meeting, which is basically when we look at high risk cases, and there's also an approach where we look at hate crime. And obviously those cases get flagged up and there's like a panel approach. It's like a multi-agency safeguarding approach.
Okay.
I just want to give you some reassurance around.
I noticed that because you've got the CRM and it works with it's like a MASH type thing.
Absolutely.
CRM works with the new integrated community enforcement model, right? Okay. So could you do like a presentation? Give you time for reflection. No more than 10 slides. Put something together which says, this is the uniform system. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing reassurance. This is how it feeds in to the joint system. Small presentation, so you got it there quite clean. Send it through to Erin, and members at their wish could then come back to you. And if you could donate 45 minutes of your time just to go through, I think that provides reassurance. Is that okay, members?
Brilliant.
Right, then I'm going to bring in, thank you. I found it a very useful interchange.
Yes, thank you. That's
Thank you.
useful. Thank you.
Kate, stopped you mid-flow. I'm going to bring you back in.
Thanks, Chair. The second part to the question I asked earlier about licensing was, what are we doing to force on ASB in unlicensed areas at the moment? My entire ward's unlicensed, Royal Victoria is unlicensed. We have some of the highest private rented sector tenure in the borough. How are we enforcing? Because it refers to private rented being enforced through the licensing. We don't have that. Just a second question while I'm here.
Answer the. Go on, and I'll let you have another one. Go on.
It is related, sort of. It says that for ASB in housing association, we just refer it to the housing association. But many councils will know that housing associations are terrible at dealing with ASB. What is I don't see anything in here about scrutinizing our housing associations.
So therefore, how do we deal with non-PRS properties in Stratford? Very brief. Second point.
PRS just not licensed.
Yeah, it's not licensed. And the second one, how do we deal with registered social landlords? Very briefly.
Yeah, so the first one would be same applies to any other premises that we use. Obviously, the PRS has licensing, which means that there's certain things that we might be able to hold the landlord to account for. So, the powers are exactly the same in general sense. So if there's statutory noise nuisance, we could deal with it. That if there was a community protection warning, it'd be absolutely the same. It's just the fact that the additional licensing regulations and the responsibilities on the landlord don't exist in those areas. So that would be
Can't you do without the licensing?
Well, it'd be what's in the licensing. I'm trying to wrap my brains now when I used to do PRS. So, for example, if the landlord's got responsibilities and not fulfilling those, then there'd be certain regulations and requirements on the landlord. Obviously, the whole thing about the licensing scheme is making sure, for example, from memory, they're a fit and proper person. For example, their agent is, that wouldn't apply in this case, so we couldn't enforce that, for example. So but what I would say is, if you forget the licensing scheme, some of the core powers we got apply throughout. So it'd be a universal. Is that okay? It doesn't necessarily mean we get it all right. I totally get that, but that's the approach. It just means with a licensing area, you're trying to be more preventive because you're trying to drive standards through the licensing scheme and the landlords and how they run the licensed premises, particularly HMOs, for example.
Yes, like quality.
Second point.
The second point, what we'd say is, and this comes back to resourcing and obviously our role as a council, we're not paid to really scrutinise housing associations, how they deal with it. What I would say is I think we've got a moral duty to try and support housing associations, which I did touch on earlier, where my ambition is we are providing them some support and training. But if they've got their own ASB teams and their residents are paying them rates and charges to deliver a service, I would expect them to be standing up.
Question to help it, and I accept the second point. And could we not have one officer whose job it is to deal with the registered social landlords? That single point of contact. Would that not make it easier?
I wouldn't have the resource to do it at the moment. I mean, what I would like to do, I've done this and I've seen this work elsewhere, is basically try to get the housing associations and the providers together and basically share good practice and basically come up with some joint practices and procedures.
Like put yourself in our shoes. We get complaints from residents who live in housing associations. We send it to the housing association. We hear nothing back. What are we supposed to do then?
Right, so the bit for me is I would have no issue you coming to the team and saying to the team, can you try and see if you can liaise with the housing association? I would expect that. I want to try and build those relationships so we've got stronger, so we can support that. I absolutely do. So, for example, how do we deal with hate crime? How do we deal with domestic abuse? Because I know some housing associations are really bad because they've never been trained to do it. So that's an aspiration. What I would say is, obviously, there is an opportunity for Scrutiny to hold individual housing associations to account. I've seen that before, where particularly certain organisations that have been invited to be held to account.
Okay.
But I would say, please come back to us. We do support you, councillor. We will try and do our best, but I will be pushing back and saying we can't invest loads of resources to do someone else's jobs. There.
I'm gonna perhaps push back on that in a minute. I'm gonna summarise the meeting. I think it's been a very good meeting actually, and I particularly like the honesty in there and the willingness to do different. What I've got is a recommendation around the greater use of housing liaison officers.
Yeah.
Because you haven't got a lot of resource. And that links to the second point. They are the eyes and ears that they operate locationally, and you fly in and deal with a problem. It's madness you're not using that resource. And what I will say to you politely is break down the walls of silo thinking, council, on that one. Second one is, can we look at the website stroke information to capture people how they report ASB via the police and via us. Our systems are not great. I'm not, like I said, drum and bass, and after logging to an account, it's not going to happen, right? The second one is about, and I'm going to add to what Nate said. Can you confirm the criteria for adding in Stratford Olympic Park and Royal Victoria into the landlord licence scheme? Also in that, can you set up quite clearly in Stratford Olympic Park, what can you do without the licensing scheme regime? And that came out in the last bit, Councillor.
Yeah, we can confirm the universal offer, Chair.
The other bit is you list a range of interventions you do. It goes from tenancy breaches down to injunctions, letters and blah, blah. But I think it might be easier in terms of helping implement the policy and for residents to understand what they're doing if you put them in a flow chart. What is the flow chart of interventions? What's stage 1? What's stage 2? What's stage 3? I'm particularly interested in trying to be very slow to act on bad landlords in council properties when we expect private landlords to adhere to standards we don't do ourselves. So I think I want us to be a leading exemplar of that. Also on hate crime, I think I talked about, it's up to you how you deliver it. A small presentation setting out what do the regulators say, what are the challenges, how are you fixing them, how are you using the reporting data to do it, and how you providing, Councillor Kamali's point, reassurance, right? To get that right. So it's better reporting and quality systems. Also, the last bit, I do think there is something about how we liaise with the registered social landlords. It's not, you know, goodness of your heart, you're saying, come to you and you'll sort it out. I think there should be a policy and SLA sitting behind that. I know you're challenged for on-resource, but that shouldn't be a challenge why we can't do something. I think there may be a bit more of a form, I'll leave it to you, formal system, how we deal with registered social landlords. I'll leave it as that.
I've got something we've done before. There was another action, Chair, just to remember, it was just to review the emergency housing policy.
Yeah.
All right, so
Lovely. Right. In that summary, I'm not going to take any more questions. I want to see if I got summarised the meeting. Is it a question or are you helping me with my summary?
I just want to say, clarification. I want to clarify something.
Go on.
Local space.
How, that's a new, no, that's naughty. That's a new question, right?
Okay.
Come on.
do it to me now. I
got you then. Right. Now, members, have we had a good discussion tonight? I think it's some really good action points there. Officer, have you managed to get over what the points you wanted to get over tonight?
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, it's a really complex area. We know there's a lot more we need to do, being completely transparent, and we are moving.
I love it. And I always say, if there's anything, as you're driving home tonight, you think, wish I said that, please go to Aaron.
Oh, is that weird?
Before we do it for you.
He's been great.
Well, are these brief comments not opening new areas? Summer.
Just ASB, can we make sure that in all blocks across the that all the notice boards are up to date so that residents know?
That's housing. That's housing issue. You could write to housing and do that, mate.
No,
He's housing, so you take it down.
actually sits with Councillor Blossom.
No, but you're in the cabinet.
Yes.
Take it. Action to.
Shared responsibility.
Just because we have suspicion the numbers might not be quite right because of the system. Can 6 months after a new system, can this come back to the committee?
Yeah.
Because the numbers seem incredibly low on enforcement.
Can we, for the next municipal year, when it's come back sort of for a refresh, we look at systems, right? Can I thank you for your time? I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh,
Good news, I can give some of the information to Aaron.
Lovely.
So which is.
Lovely.
helpful for-
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. Good question, guys. Thank you. Right, we're gonna go on to air quality. Let me get my notes. Right. Thank you for that. The report is noted, and that resolved. Happy with the recommendations? Agreed. Thank you very much. Next section is Newham's Air Quality Action Plan. The purpose of this item is to evaluate the impact of the 2019-24 Air Quality Action Plan and to review the development of the new plan, which is 2025-2030, and the ongoing consultation process. I'd like to thank colleagues who provided a report, very extensive. Thank you for that, and thank you for what people wouldn't know, we had a meeting before this, which helped us plan for that, and that was very, very useful. We've got Councillor John Whitworth, Jane Custis, Director of Planning and Development, and Mark Partridge, Noise and Pollution Manager. So if you'd like to introduce a couple of minutes each.
But you are, yep. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm very pleased to present this report, and particular thanks to Mark and his team. There's a lot of work went into it. As you can see, it's a refresh of the previous Air Quality Action Plan 2019-24, building on examining the successes or the relative lack of success of the next 5 years. It's a statutory requirement, so this is a refresh of the previous plan. You can see in it, we look at the state of air quality in Newham, the effect of poor air quality on health and how the air quality is monitored. We then look at the really the successes we've had over the previous 5 years, some of the shortcomings, and how we're building on the lessons learned for the next plan. So we've set out priorities for the next 5 years. And also you can see it at the end, there's the matrix of actions and the key indicators of how they'll be monitored. And I'll just say that we're looking forward to your comments. I know you've had some experience of previous scrutiny on parks and green spaces where you looked at air quality a bit, so you're building on that. And just say that this is a result of collaboration with internally with the different departments of the council, including with the local plan and Jane's team. So thanks for them as well. And just also mention that this commission, in the person of the chair, has already had some input into this and has helped shape the report you see here. So we're looking forward to hearing your comments and contributions.
Thank you. Jane, Mark?
I haven't got anything else to add.
Yeah, so Mark Partridge, manager of the noise and pollution team within the council. Yeah, just expanding on that, obviously this is a draft statutory document. As the chair has said, we have had some previous conversations about the structure and how it looks and the template. We've taken previous comments away to see how, because the GLA like it in this template because it allows a comparator where they can draw out all the information from the matrix. We review and report upon progress against the action plan every year as an ASR. So the matrix that we have forms an easy sort of template for the GLA where they can pull out the information that they need in order to do comparators across London. It's in, as I say, draft form. There has been a bit of slippage between when the last one was meant to be finished, the 5 years, and this one. Team and say taking as previous comments away, the council thankfully provided. We are now in a position where we've gone through the internal consultation with teams, all the teams that you'll see noted in the matrix who are responsible for certain aspects of the plan, and building up now following consultation with yourselves and feedback where we will be in a position to go out and do a statutory external consultation. We're looking probably a 6 to 8 week consultation for that. However, first of all, as I say, because it's a template that GLA and DEFRA need, we've gone back to them now to say, look, we think we're still in line with your template, but trying to nuamise it, should you say. And obviously, if they give us a go ahead, then we're ready to go. Unfortunately, if they say no, we don't think it's close enough, or you've gone diverted too far away, then we're going to have to go back to the drawing board a little bit. But we're confident that, you know, we've stuck to the template as much as we can, while obviously bringing our own new concerns into the document rather than a GLA as a whole.
Yeah. Councillor, right. I wasn't ready.
So I do have as well a member of my team who's got a wealth of experience in air quality. So there's a technical question I can't.
Sabia,
Available there for.
Thelma and Nate. Sabia.
So
Lemon.
this is probably a question for Nick and something beyond my comprehension. On this air quality, on the report, it says air quality is linked to asthma. Like it's bad for children, but where does damp and mold fall into it? Because obviously damp and mold has an impact. So would you be able to tell me, how would you say air quality has more of an impact on a child than damp and mold in terms of asthma?
Damp and mold is a case of ventilation or poor ventilation in a building, and obviously.
No, I'm saying in this report, asthma's related. You're saying it's bad air quality, hence therefore we've got asthma. But when you read a different paper, it'll be like, due to damp and mold, we've got asthma. So which one is it?
Both, because as you say, it's more prevalent in children because their lungs are still developing as you take in the pollution such as particulate matter, PM2.5.
Be helpful to you, Mark. I think it might be what I think a drafting issue, because I think Councillor Kamali is right. There is a contributing factor, damp and mold, which could give it the preconditions for asthma. Yes, it could be triggered by poor air, but poor air is not the sole contributing factor for asthma. So I think as I always say, it could be in the drafting. You might want to speak to public health colleagues and get a line of how can they disaggregate between damp and mold asthma, the asthma. The minimum, I think it might be helpful just to put down, we are aware, but contributing factor asthma are damp and mold. Ergo, NEOM has an extensive damp and mold task force in its properties. Yeah. Yeah. For the point, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got Thelma.
9, it talks about this potential funding stream for the air. It's the fact that we're having data centers coming in, and this sounds really good because we're going to string fence this money towards the air quality action plan. My question is, what are these data centers? How many are there? Why is this only potential rather than guaranteed? And when we get this money and we ring fence it towards these projects, how confident are you that whatever we do is going to cause more improvement than the damage caused by the multiple diesel generators used by these data centers?
So, good question. Data centers, as some of you may know, obviously with the introduction of internet, computer speeds, now with AI, more power is needed to generate the power to drive these, the computing power. That involves, and usually because we're at, let's say, advantage or disadvantage, being so close to Canary Wharf as well, they want to get close to these hubs where all this data power is needed and is best used. So there are currently, I believe now they've both been approved by the planning decision. There's one on Bidder Street and one at G Park, which is the old Allnex site down in Newplex Resins. They will obviously, I think we're probably 3 years away from the first one coming into action, but we won't get that money until that data center becomes operational. The figure is there because it's based on a DEFRA air quality neutral guidance about how much they will contribute. The reason they need to contribute is because this air quality neutral guidance says they need to obviously be air quality neutral. With the use of the generators, which are diesel generators, which are backup generators, emergency generators, just in case anything goes wrong, they will fall out of that air quality neutral. And in order then to offset the air quality, offset that difference, although, as a last resort, they are contributing a financial contribution to that.
In planning guidance somewhere, chunk of cash, where 106 or still, whatever it is, comes back for that purpose. Is it written down in stone?
It's in air quality neutral guidance, which is within the local plan.
And that cannot be manipulated?
No, there's this calculation. I mean, Nick is a specialist on this. There is a calculation that they need to use.
So we're never going to get that money, okay?
Unless something goes wrong and they're not built and don't become operational. But if they become operational, there is that money there, yes.
So when the data centers are built,
yeah,
a ton of cash is coming our way.
Yes. Well, yes.
You hesitating?
No, yeah. There's set figures at the moment for how much. One of them is dependent on another electricity source.
Okay.
Coming available.
Written down in a big document somewhere.
So within the planning document, how much that will be, yeah.
And your second question was?
Quite a few questions.
No. How many, you asked two, didn't you?
I just asked one.
Oh, that's all right. I'll bring you back in second round. Everyone's been really concise today, so we're gonna, Nate.
I hope I don't break that straight. Just a meta point. I think this should probably go to health scrutiny at some point. Like if they're going to know more about some of the health impacts than necessarily this committee and be more prepared to look at it, and also other aspects of air quality like air transmitted diseases and things like that. Like I think we need to, COVID as an example, some of the measures that you tackle indoor air quality with can also tackle COVID, and that's really important. So I'd like to see it go to health scrutiny. On what we have in front of us. There's some stuff about emission-based parking. One of the problems with that is that electric vehicles also contribute to emissions, so the actual solution needs to be quite substantial modal shift. Is the department considering introducing weight-based parking or an SUV tax, as some would call it? That's the first question, and then this is a question for Whitworth. Are we campaigning to the Mayor of London to consider road user charging? Because it's unfair that the bridges and things that we do in the east have road user charging, but the rest of London doesn't. That's
and John.
Weight-based parking, that was something we actually raised with our parking colleagues during the consultation period. There is no plans as of yet to introduce that because we just recently introduced the sort of emissions based, and they are introducing a new diesel surcharge as well in the next, well, I think it's already in place, but I think they're coming in for residential parking as well as visitor parking. So I think they're conscious that trying to introduce too much maybe at once is difficult, and we're trying to sort of promote the move from diesel cars to electric, so then potentially penalise.
Change from diesel to no car, like.
Well, yeah, at the same time, yes, yeah. I mean, there's different teams dealing with modal shifts into cycling and things. Which
short answer is, there is no plans for weight base. However, which I've written down, there should be a strategy on vehicle charging.
Considering it, other cities are considering it.
Okay.
It's in consideration when we discussed it, but at this moment, there's no plans.
I think we'll take it as a recommendation. We'll ask for the overall strategy of vehicle charging. I think. John, the question was about charging bridges east of.
So road user charging, so that people charge based on their use, not just because they happen to cross the Silvertown tunnel or the Blackwall tunnel. It's unfair that we're getting road user charging just for those tunnels, but not for all of London. It would be one of the best tools that we have to introduce modal shift.
So for campaigning council,
we're a campaigning council. Are we campaigning for road user charging?
We're not as yet, but that might be a good idea to consider.
Okay.
And a recommendation perhaps to.
Talking about that during, there was lots of discussion about that during the Silvertown DCO, but I don't know what that got. It was with a different team.
Sabia?
I'm just going to follow up on Nate's question. I mean, obviously, we shouldn't be in a position of telling people how to travel, but if we look at it, I was more after the impact assessment on the road, because if you look at electric cars are aimed at more people, more wealthy, more like have the money to actually invest. So what are we doing for the poor like poor is such a wrong word to use, but residents who are on low income to actually compile by it? Because I think if we do stuff like that, it has an impact on their budget as well, on their finance. I know we are rolling out for about 3,000 charging point. But what are we doing for residents who live in flats as well? Because they don't have access to that as well.
I think really that's a question for EST.
Yeah.
Because we're through the air quality monitoring that we do, and that supports them in some of the initiatives that they've have, which improve air quality, like the low traffic neighbourhoods. But that isn't something that's actually within our remit.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question on that low traffic neighbourhood on that point?
Yep.
Does it really reduce overall vehicle emission, or does it just shift the pollution to another area?
The evidence shows that certainly on the roads that are form part of the LTN, there is a reduction in emissions.
So therefore, it shifts it to another area.
So there's been evidence to suggest that people just take alternative routes, because obviously the idea is that they will become congested, but there is evidence there that that initial impact falls away over time.
But when they take other, doesn't that increase their journey time, and doesn't that increase the emission base?
Or people find alternative ways of.
Bring in Nick. Is that Nick? Yeah. Nick, come in, Nick, please.
Just really that though there's no work done as far as I'm aware in Newham. There's this question has been raised with regard to low traffic neighbourhoods, and there's been a lot of studies done that investigate effectively changes to the air pollution levels on periphery roads, and there has been no measurable increase in air pollution shown in those studies. So the pollution levels decrease within low traffic neighbourhoods, and that's the stuff that the research has shown in Newham, and research shown in other places is it doesn't seem to affect air pollution on the border roads. Hopefully that helps.
Can I ask you a supplementary? At the moment, I think 34% of Newham roads covered by LTN, and we need to increase it by 10% as per the documentation. The documentation also says there's a strategic ambition to have 80% of our roads covered by LTNs. In that situation, what work has been done to assess impact of the remaining roads? Because when it's 80% of the borough's roads of LTN, there's a lot of cars running around on 20% of our roads, right?
The general, I can't answer that specific question because it's dealt with through our colleagues in the highways. But again, going back to what was said overall, is we're not just looking for shifting people onto different routes. We're looking for shifting people into active travel. It's looking at active travel. It's better for the environment and it's better for people's personal health. You get out on walking, on your bike, public transport, your health is better, which is one of the reasons why we're looking to say, yeah, we are having the low traffic neighbourhoods. Yes, it does have a small beneficial effect in those areas, but actually overall to improve air pollution levels and to improve people's health, we're looking for mode shift.
Okay, can I ask you a question there? You talk about mode shift and you're citing research. Has that research got class underpinned in that research? Lots of research I have seen talks to middle class people about middle class modal shift, right? This is Newham, which is a slightly different population. In terms of the bias, have you looked at the bias in the research you're using to justify your position? And I don't mean to be confrontational about that. I'm asking about the citing research, but what I'm asking for, has that research been sensitized to the demographic within Newham? And I'll bring in Sabi early.
Is if you're talking about specifics for the peripheral driving in low traffic neighbourhoods, no, I don't. I haven't looked at that. This is just the.
Yep.
I read all the air quality papers. I'm sad like that. With regards to the general benefits of active travel, that's universal. You know, that if you're, you know, the colleagues in public health, I'm sure will support us on this matter. The more active you are, as a rule, the healthier you are. And it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. And to be honest, the potential benefits for residents of Newham, because health is relatively poor, we have a shorter life expectancy here, then the benefits will be greater.
Okay, I accept the general thrust of the point. However, what I'm talking about is the transition from where we are into the future. Different classes of people and demographics move at different rates. What I'm not sure of is Newham taking into consideration the different demographic and the transition. I'm going to bring in supplementary Councillor Kamali, then I'm going to bring in John, then I've got Nate, then I've got Shanti, then I've got Simon. A shortcut question, supplementary?
My one is around this thing about active travel and encouraging people to be on a bike. But I think also we should also take in consideration, and I think it'll go back on the other conversation, is the rise of hate crime has increased. So for someone like me, there are a lot of people who look like me in Newham. A safe mode of travel is by traveling. I've been attacked on the bus, I've been attacked on the train, on the street, on the bike. So what you're saying is we're not dealing with hate crime on safeguarding, on our safety issue, but we're also taking the only mode of traveling safe, we're taking that away. We're not taking in consideration of disability. I mean, disabled people cannot go on bike, not all disability can. So I think this active travel in theory is good, but it doesn't apply to all of us. So I think that should be taken in consideration as well.
That was a comment?
Safety element and health as well.
Selma?
I wanted to ask about cycling, from Sabia. So on page 21, we talk about air quality around schools, and we talk about that student enlistment rates have increased. But I wanted to ask if you're connected to this on cycling. Are students starting to cycle more? And you also talk about some amazing new cycling routes that you have. I wanted to just ask how you publicising that so that people actually start to use it. And then my last question was on targeting intervention. Instead of pages and pages talking about the issue, the problem that there are some groups that are disproportionately affected when it comes to air quality. However, when you talk about the targeting the intervention, you only really talk about going to the GP and talking about supporting those first who are currently suffering. And that is really important. That is the right thing to do. But more than that,
the question is?
Yeah, all the stuff you said about those who are disproportionately affected and disadvantaged, you don't really say how you're going to capture those people or target those first.
And John, you wanted to come back in earlier, so if you want to take those questions.
Yeah, a couple of points. What Nick said about the benefits of active travel is of course right. We're particularly concerned about a lot of very short distance travel, where people have actually, you know, by the time you've gone to your car, driven to the destination, found a parking spot, you know, there are quite a lot of people who take as long to get somewhere that's 15-minute walk away. And this is one of the things where we can make a gain with little inconvenience. So I think to raise awareness of the need for short distance travel. I recognise that many people do feel the need for a car, and I take on board Councillor Kamali's point. This is an issue of society that needs dealing with, obviously. So, but there are a lot of occasions where I think we need to help people to reflect on, do they need a car for this particular journey? In some cases, do they need a car at all? We can make gains in that respect. The other point I wanted to make was really a question which you posed yourself, Chair, about the relationship between modal shift and class. Now, I'm not denying the existence of class, it's a reality, but it's a question of definition. And so it is a very problematic question, I would suggest, but perhaps an interesting one to explore.
And I'm going to bring in Shantu, councillor Verder.
For me, Simon, then my hand was up.
Okay. Hold on,
Just,
hold on a minute, hold on. You said your question's not been answered. Which one's not been answered?
well, yeah, the cycling aspect that you're talking about, yeah, I mean, we appreciate, and we mention it in the quality action plan, is that, and certainly since I've been here, a number of years, the interconnectivity around Newham is very difficult, and there's a lot of arterial roads that people have safety concerns about getting on their bikes. So that is something that needs challenging and has been looked at. Again, it's working with this EST team about how that can be improved, where the cycle routes may be better. Other aspects of sort of active travel we're looking at is just considering whether we're not just talking about improving air quality, also talking about exposure to air quality with residents as well. So one of the bits of work we've been doing over the last year is doing sort of route maps to schools. So you look at alternative routes where you're not walking along a major road or something like that, something that reduces your exposure, certainly for children, that's beneficial, has health benefits. And also doing sort of introducing clean air day, sort of nature walks and things like that, and how you can, how you can improve your health by going to green spaces where all this interconnects, and making it a fun sort of package that they can do during these routes. And the communications about disadvantage, we have a number of messaging alert systems, one called AirText, one called AirAware. They are all things that you sign up, we pay a membership for them, and we've actually developed the AirAware with a number of neighbouring boroughs. And they are something you sign up for, you get message alerts. Certainly with AirText, you get message alerts when the air quality is bad. So if you are an asthma sufferer or have any other underlying issues, you can then decide, obviously, whether to go out, or again, you find an alternative route, or you change the time of day that you go out when the air quality is improved. That again is similar to AirAware.
Hold on.
Those who are suffering, which is important, but I was just talking about the broader.
Okay, point made. Now, you don't want to go next, do you, Shanti? Simon.
Make it fair.
Gave me the look. Simon.
Right, thank you, Chair. I've got loads of things I'm going to say.
Just your first question.
Questions.
First question.
And points.
Yeah.
Thank you. Firstly, digressing from what the gentleman on the Nick said up there. He's up there to vote from down here, anyway. When he mentions life expectancy and almost suggesting it's pollution, yes, that does have an effect. But the main reason poor boroughs have a low life expectancy, because there's an awful lot of traffic in the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, one of the wealthiest boroughs, always has the longest life expectancy. Got loads of traffic. It's diet that does it, and lack of money that causes low life expectancy, not traffic, as proved in the London various Royal boroughs.
Comment more made.
The figures in your really nicely put together. I don't know what it's called. Your mind's got
metrics.
It's saying 42% of vehicle with this borough only has full population with 42% of us having vehicles. I believe it's at least 48%. Other Newham stuff very recently suggests that. So I'd love to know where that figure comes from. Does that include people that earn a living with a vehicle, that are leasing a vehicle, renting a vehicle, minicab? And again, in a poor borough where the wages are low, an awful lot of people do that for a living.
Your data source.
Can I just point out that the report did say that to take lightly the data that is in chapter 2 here, because another reason we haven't quite got to where we want to is that if you look, this is LAEI data from 2019.
I realise that
some of this data we've been told there will be something coming out in March.
Gotcha.
GLA, this is a GLA, but these figures may well then change.
Basing figures for pollution levels created by vehicles and the figures aren't correct, you're suggesting things that aren't actually true.
That's right. We will, before we go out to any consultation, we will update all these figures. This is just the best information we had at this time. And I'm not comfortable going out with the same information.
I'll let you go one question.
We were the sixth or one of the highest public transport mode share within London at 41% back in 2019. Where are we with that today? Also note, back in 2019, Newham cycling was around 2 to 3%. Has that improved?
I would have to look at the data, whether it's in here right now.
And the final question.
Yeah.
Where are you getting the figures for pollution levels from? Are they our pollution things we put out or City of London's? Because I think we seem to have them all over the place, where other boroughs like Barnet do use very limited.
Well, yeah, it's because of the makeup of the borough. The data we're using chapter 2 here is called LAEI data, which is local atmospheric emissions inventory. It's a GLA project that goes into all these different junctions within. It's an extensive piece of work. It goes to all the junctions, models the air quality data, and hence you get the maps that you see in chapter 2. This is separate to the modelling, the monitoring that we do. We have, as you say, on our website, we have, and if you look in the ASR, which I think was linked.
So Mark, are we saying before the consultation closes and the report's finalised, as Councillor Russell's point, all the data be the most accurate we've got, basically?
Yeah, we're told, although it won't be as recent as we'd like, but it's going to be 2022 data, but it will be different from what is in this document currently.
Happy that?
Thank you.
I'm happy to provide that data outside as soon when it comes in.
Yeah, so from page number 16, I can see you have, there are many plans you have to improve the air quality in different areas. I can see the reasons behind for the poor air quality, but I haven't seen many actions there. Like I haven't seen any suggestions not to use plastic bag or plastic bottle or for planting more, just to improve minimize the carbon dioxide and to minimize the nitrogen dioxide. I haven't found this kind of guideline. I found the source, what causing, but I would like to request you to encourage residents, instead of banning at the moment, it's difficult for our poor residents, banning plastic bag, those stuff, encouraging using plastic bag, the cotton bag, to use sustainable bottle.
Could I just point out, this is an air quality action plan. What you're talking about there is CO2 and plastic. That would be more climate change, sustainability.
Dumping on street also is damaging air quality.
Okay, I think there's a.
When people dumping on
our. And we're dealing here because this document is we declared an air quality management area back in 2019 for NO2 and particulates. That is what this.
Okay, hold on. Antu. Actually, I think you made the point well, but obviously that's a wider sort of carbon reduction strategy, which I think goes across environment.
Just transition plan.
This is a niche air quality thing.
Yeah.
A point well made, but this is a niche. This is one for techies, isn't it? This is about air quality. I'm not calling you a techie, Mark, but okay, Nate.
Thanks, Chair. Just back to LTNs. I agree with a lot of what other members said about it being important that people who need to use a car can still use a car and that there are not disproportionate impacts on those people. But LTNs take unnecessary journeys off the road and that helps those people. I think that's the bit that people miss in that conversation. It also makes roads safer. In that spirit, officers will be aware of the horrible incident on Balmoral Road last week and the incident on Stratford High Street last month. Both of these will be making people more fearful of active travel, and particularly the one on Balmoral Road is supposed to be within an LTN and it isn't right now. When are we going ahead with the Wood Grange and Claypool LTN?
Is that no more a question for transport, Colin?
It would be, I mean, we do all the background monitoring for that, so we would set up or identify where the monitors will be set up in order to provide the before and after. So we get told where the LTNs are going, and a colleague of mine would say, right, this is where you want the monitoring. In terms of, I can find that information out for you.
It'd be helpful to you, Aaron. Aaron, we'll get Aaron as a scrutiny officer to write to the environment people and ask them that specific question.
I know we are introducing there'll be about 49 by the end of this year, LTNs in place.
Yeah, okay, I've got it as a recommendation, okay.
And then on just because this refers to the draft, the 2025 local plan, which obviously hasn't been approved by council yet. When is that coming to council? Do you know?
Yeah, it should be.
June.
Yeah, it could be coming in June or July.
Okay, and now I've got on the second round, and I've got Sabia.
My hand, please.
I thought you would give it, is that a hand?
His hand.
I thought you just, all right, so, okay, I've got Thelma, I've got Femi, I've got Shantu, and I'm, right.
I came first.
God, right, let's be very quick. No speeches, no rants. Right, questions?
Page 29, first of all, you talk about how it's really.
One question.
Okay. You talk about how it's really down to our residents to like change their behaviour to improve this issue. However, on page 49, we see a graph there and it looks so much that it really is construction that is the problem. You see it where it's like, there's not really much happening domestically. So my question is, with lots and lots of regen going on around across the borough, what are we doing to ensure that our air quality?
Brilliant. Brief answer. One question.
In terms of construction specifically? Yeah.
Okay, let him answer the question.
Construction is, yeah, obviously we're a fast growing borough, so that's understandable, I think. And I think we do comparators against other local authorities in there, but because we're increasing at such a speed in terms of development.
Okay.
The dust and everything coming from that is shown to be, greater.
Right.
But we do have the code of construction practice that we're introducing, which will set out how they need to monitor air quality. These are modelled figures against the LAI. In reality, we have the controls over there that maybe aren't considered in this plan. So, as I say, they do have monitoring on sites. For instance, we've had the Silvertown Tunnel site. We've had very little issues there. They're monitoring all around. So the impact maybe isn't as great as you would potentially model it.
Okay, great. I'm going to go for Nate, Sabia. I'm going to go this way and then Jemima right quickly. Sabia?
I'm just going to go back on the air quality stuff. We're surrounded by A13, A12, A406. But it feels like certain group of people are being targeted. What are we doing to monitor air quality, the impact that those roads have?
There's very little we can do, unfortunately, because they're TfL roads. So we monitor, but we don't have any powers. The individual use of individual cars is not a local government issue. It's a central government issue. So there's very little we can do about those roads because also the way they're run, they're privately run and they get more money for the amount of vehicles.
Thanks, Chair. In page 57. There is a lot of lesson learned from 2019. So my question is, what have we done looking to the field to improve on the lessons from 2019?
Bear with me. Don't have the minutes. So I've just done it.
Page 57.
I've got it. It's page 27 of the AQAP. So what we've looked at here is obviously we have resource issues as well, costs and everything as well, is how we can make a greater impact. And like you say, we are looking at bringing, just as transition plan does, and just as the Build a Fair and New corporate plan does, we're trying to bring residents with us, raising awareness of residents, what they can do, not just as I say to improve air quality, but to decrease exposure to the concentrations that they're, around Newham. So it's bringing that with us, what they can do in order to, improve their exposure to it. Again, we talked about the bicycles and the safety concerns that we have, and it's working with EST, Environment and Sustainable Transport, to deliver on that. Construction site, we're on that. With the new local plan as well, we'll be introducing an air quality supplementary plan guidance. We'll have a code of construction practice that will all.
Move on. Before I move, a brief supplementary, go on.
Yeah, how are you communicating to residents?
Yeah, that's my question.
All that you're doing, how are you communicating?
John, you want to answer that, John?
Well, we recognise where the previous plan could have been stronger was greater engagement and involvement of residents. And I think the new plan is a step up on that, because we've recognised the need to get not only people better informed, but also to participate in projects and to mobilise them to see the need that air quality is due to many things, but people can, to an extent, help and control it themselves.
So can I just say that many people don't go to those participatory events in libraries. A lot of people are external participants in what they do at the council. In a future communication strategy, can we focus on those people who don't go to any library events? And they are the greater majority of people, I think. And back to Jemima's point, lots of people don't go to those events, but they are affected by what the council does. Can I just ask you to take back, in your communication strategy, focus on the silent participant, if we can call that in your strategy?
I mean, say a concept.
Good point, Chair, but I think we have considered that, because it's not just face to face. That is not sufficient.
But I think that's, if you look at what's happening with all this charging, I nearly said nonsense, but not nonsense. If you don't involve the quiet majority, people will fight back and they just won't have it. And at the moment, I don't think we've gone to the people who we never see at those 6:30 events on a Tuesday in the library. Just a comment, I'll just take back there.
I mean,
fair point. I was going to carry on.
Go on then, John. I don't want to stop you in your flow.
Yeah, because I think this the next five-year plan is a step up, because we're also considering the factor of deprivation more than we did before, and this is part of the engagement. We're recognising that the inequality of air quality for health, coming back to the point you made about class, this is being taken into account more, and that's why it's all part of the just transition. We've got to make things better for the people that are suffering worse from pollution, very often the ones who are the least responsible. So this is a factor in the new plan, and we're also considering really the factors of air pollution in a holistic way, that it's all part of the local economy.
Okay. Thank you, John. Femi, be brief.
I mean, you asked that question, but I'm going further than that.
Right, okay.
You got a question about in page 444, you mentioned something about 813, 812, 846. And you come down and said that Trafford Town Hall, Trafford Town, Canning Town, East Town, Forest Gate, because of the traffic flow there, that pollution has increased. Now, question is, how do you, with the statistic that Nick has just explained to us, how do you come about that the pollution has reduced when you block other roads that link these people? Because you can't stop the traffic. You have the traffic flowing more because people don't find a way out. Then there's concentration of traffic in a particular area. So it increases the pollution. I don't know how, because I'm struggling to understand your statistics. I don't think it's add up.
There is improvement in the LTNs.
Yeah.
And like I say, we haven't done it. We haven't mentioned anything specific about Newham and the peripheral roads, but evidence elsewhere suggests that there is no change in the air quality levels. That might be that people find alternative routes or change modes of transport. But that's what the evidence suggests, is that there is no.
The answer, just the air quality monitor just measures what the particulates is.
Well,
are we just assuming? Is that an assumption? It's not fact, is it?
What is that? Sorry. Well, there has been tests done in other locations, not necessarily in Newham, that shows that there is no deterioration in air quality in the periphery.
Shanti?
Hi, As you know, we live in working class borough, and most of the people using the car for their living. We need to be realistic. They're encouraging people to buy electric car. But the installment plan of the electric car is quite higher.
What's the question?
So how can you improve the air quality? How can you encourage people if you don't decrease the installment plan of the electric car?
Hold on, can I just,
What would,
Andrew, I think their action plan is designed to do that.
Yeah, but action plan is that, but the installment plan is higher.
Yeah, but the difference, but you talk about an installment plan for an EV car, which is down to the individual. But, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the action plan we've got is something designed to take into consideration all the strategic factors to help the borough move from where we are into the future, right?
yeah, we're looking at it holistically. So like you say, what we're losing sight of maybe is that, Stratford and those areas now are some of the most connected areas of London with public transport. We should be promoting them, but I get your point as well that, maybe some people don't feel safe enough, and that's not maybe something we've considered in this, but, maybe a broader piece of work with another team.
Mark, Simon? Then I'm going to bring in Nate.
Thank you.
It's talking about it.
Thank you, Chair. Don't know whether to call it, active travel, let's go for that. E-bicycles, I'm not going to use e-scooters because they're illegal. E-scooters, bicycles, I'm doing it myself now, apologise. Yes, good thing, but a couple of things nobody's doing, and we should all be pushing as a council that likes to do these sorts of things. We should be promoting safety in e-bicycles and again with e-cars. Both of them have those things called lithium batteries in it. Lithium batteries, these things are put together, put out on the market, sold, but there's no safety concerns, they're not checks. No, that's not an air quality.
Yeah.
I mean, we're aware that like kind of
Using.
Yeah, that's a more of be helpful. That is
Legislation.
Yeah, that's more of an environment.
That is more legislation.
That is more of an.
you could raise awareness about storage. Yeah.
That's more of an environment question. Remember, we focus on air quality. I'm going to go for Nate, then Thelma, then I'm going to summarise.
Thank you. Two concerns. The first is on the EV car charger rollout. It's really important that we start with areas reserved. I think the Olympic Park might be the only ward in the whole borough that has 0, looking at this map. So it'd be really great if we get a few council electric. We have some council car parking spots, so it's very possible to do it. Looking at this map, it looks like there's 0 in the Olympic Park. Second concern is on the greening the council's fleet, and I think that specifically the concern is about the dust carts and so on, that the infrastructure for charging those. The thing says that
Question, Nate.
I'm getting to it. Monetary pressures have made this objective increasingly difficult to realise. Is this the council signalling that it's not going to be able to reach this goal of having a green fleet by 2030? And what, okay, if this is the signal that there's a problem, what are we doing to try to address that so that we do have a green fleet?
John's got an answer.
It does need very expensive infrastructure at the council's depot at Folkestone Road. And at the moment, we can't guarantee that that funding will be found. We're looking for it, but it depends on the money coming in to be able to pay for it, which we can't guarantee at the moment.
Get that funding in order to reach the 2030 goal?
Yeah, we will do, yeah.
No, how soon do we need to get that funding to have time to reach?
I don't know that. I know that the sort of figures we're talking about, but I don't know how soon we would need them.
Maybe we could get that in writing, because I need to know as a councillor when we're getting towards the point of it's just not going to be achievable anymore.
Okay, got it down. I've got it down. Recommendation. That's good. Okay. I've got last two. I've got Thelma, Flight, then I've got Sabia. Small ones, please. Not speeches.
What's the uptake of the zero emissions network and the Air Aware online platform? What's the uptake? What's the usage?
I could find out. I don't have that figure to hand.
Great. Couldn't note that down. Sabia.
I don't know if it's for now or later on, but I think we need some kind of assurance because as we know, the biggest contributor towards pollutions are the A roads that I mentioned, which people use as Newham as pass by to get to wherever they want. So what is the council going to do to actually deal with the real issue that is contributed towards the air pollution is those A road, then just focus on little roads. So if we could come back with a proper solution in terms with A406, A12, A11, all the roads that actually impact residents more than anything else, that'd be.
Like I say, I mean, within the key line of inquiry, we do say that it is incredibly difficult and nigh on impossible for the council to do anything on those roads because of the way they're built and the structures they have, the light
Can't do anything.
they have to run.
Okay.
The car isn't a local council issue, it's a central government issue. So we are hamstrung in what we can actually do on those roads. We can maybe do something along the peripheral of them. Won't be able to reduce the amount of pollution from
I just
I think without any.
taking on your action plan. Can we have some hard metrics? Some hard, smart metrics, please. I would like to know when we reach success.
Yeah,
that you get there. At the moment, reading them, it's lots of intent.
We have
wishes, lots of maybes, but don't tell me it's on whatever the 6 points there. This is what success looks like.
I mean, we've got a KPI document there, which we've done separately because we see that's under our control.
Okay.
Obviously, as we've found with the previous action plan, these can change over time.
Techie, but a KPI measures the process along the way. What I'm talking about, the outcome, the output. Oh, I'll get them wrong there. Too late. What's the was it outcome? One's process, one's target, isn't it? The
outcome, isn't it?
Outcome, right. What is the outcome at the end? You've got 6 bits, 6 colourful things at the end, but I'm not clear on what the outcome is. And just to be helpful, I know we've had many helpful conversations. It'd be helpful. The reason why I say that, because it'd be useful to tell the resident when we get there how successful we are, rather than telling them it's a journey, it's a journey, it's a journey, right? One. The second.
The idea of the action plan is to, and because it's a statutory document and we've had the air quality management, and the idea of this document is to reduce the pollution levels below the national air quality objectives. That therefore means we don't need an air quality management area. However, that doesn't mean we're going to stop doing it because we want constant improvement. There's no end game except we're never going to get
next question.
Concentrations.
On PM 2.5, that's the one we need to get to the same level as the Mayor of London's, right?
Yeah.
But in the document, you don't explicitly say what the Mayor of London's target is. And you don't say where we are now.
It's
John.
I think it is mentioned in the document.
It's in the
it will reach the World Health Organization's objective by 2030. I think that's Mayor of
but what is that then?
So table 1 has the legislative context and it talks.
Okay.
So it's 10 milligrams per metre.
Okay.
20.
Okay, fine. And thank you for that. And also the other one is the hardy perennial is the Silvertown Tunnel. It goes back to the question Councillor Higgins raised. Silvertown Tunnel is going to have a detrimental effect on our air quality, especially around Canning Town.
Yeah.
So, and it goes back to the point which Councillor Higgins raised with you, John. We're supposed to be a campaigning council. I think, when last have we written a letter to Sadiq saying Silvertown Tunnel is detrimental to our air quality and this is what we want?
Yeah, sent the last ones.
Can you circulate that letter to?
I believe. Maybe 2023 was during construction.
That's 4 years ago.
DCO battle, and then I think because before the DCO battle, then we were moving on to campaigning for better monitoring and everything.
Right. I keep seeing the comms from Sadiq Khan letting me know when the Silvertown Tunnel is open.
Yeah.
With my Newham hat on, that tells me my air quality is going up. I've not seen from the council any communication from the council putting Newham's view forward. John.
Well, the main action that's been going on is with the Silvertown Tunnel implementation group, and we've got 3 members on that, including Mark, and they are lobbying along with most of the other local boroughs involved for various issues. which we can say what they are about
All right, can I ask?
the first year or two.
Okay,
Right. Nick is on the, sorry, Mark is on the, he can tell you what they've been doing.
it's great.
That is where the lobbying's been helping, but it's not in the public view.
Absolutely right. What I'm asking, Nick,
And Nick is on
gonna come in.
on the committee as
If
well.
it's the air quality bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I was involved in the Silvertown Tunnel when I worked across the water in Greenwich, and look, Vicar was part of the DCO process and the public inquiry. The things that I will be interested in overall is there was a number of assertions made during the public inquiry process, development consent order process, about traffic through the tunnel and the rest of it. One of the things I'm going to be pressing very hard for is finding out whether the assertions made at the public inquiry have actually been delivered when the tunnel opens. For instance, I'll give a pure, for instance, example is that the Silvertown Way was not identified as a priority for Transport for London to put an air quality monitoring station on. We, Newham, thought this was a bad idea. We thought that there was every chance that traffic would go up the Silvertown Tunnel and arrange for a monitor to be placed up the Silvertown Way and arrange for a monitor to be placed. We'll be having a look at the monitors which are close to the tunnel portal and seeing if there are any changes over the first year of operation. We'll be also looking at whether promises made regarding no increase in private motor vehicles crossing will also be done. What actually is done with the information, I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave to the council more widely.
Right. Nick, that was a useful interjection. So what I'm going to ask the cabinet member is to really, John, one of my recommendations is it would be useful if we have an external communications campaign on Silvertown Tunnel. So what are we doing? What are we expecting? What are we expecting in the year? Because at the moment, there is no comms whatsoever on Silvertown Tunnel, right? All I see is what's it going to cost me? And it's great. That's the comms from TfL. Whereas with my Newham hat on, it's not great for our air quality. So what I want to see, the chair of this committee, is the council put in the Newham side of the debate. It's potentially not great. Nick came up with some really good things, checking whether the assertions at the beginning of the inquiry are going to come through. There's always been the issue of the air quality monitoring around the tunnel. I just want this committee to see that we are putting Newham's resident side forward in our communications. All right, we can't change it. We can't block it up. We can't do it. I'm not going to lie on the road and stop cars, but please tell me what we're doing to mitigate its impact, especially when one of the air quality focus areas is probably going to get worse due to that tunnel. Okay. Now, what I want to do,
we have historical. There's a comms from the mayor to Sadiq, if that's interesting.
That's great.
It's also
ones as well.
We have a number of demands that have been made at the Civil Dental Implementation Group.
Yeah.
If they're not met, then is the time, or if they're not going to be met, then is the time for a public campaign.
Well,
all right, will be necessary.
Yeah, but it'd be useful if you tell us what you're doing on our behalf. You've got this little committee, but no one knows what's going on there. So if it's done in the result,
I can say one or two things.
But what I think, John, we need is a bit more of an external communications campaign. But you're sitting in these meetings acting on our behalf, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
that's what you're doing, right? Get credit for it. Tell us what you're going to do for us in the future, right? I want to draw to conclusion. Right, we're running time. No. You've had 5 goes at the cherry, more than anyone else. Right. So in terms of recommendations, what I've got down, I'm looking for nods of agreement or yay to improve. Number 1, a joint commission health scrutiny at some point on air quality. Number 1. Yep. Number 2, we need a paper on the strategy for vehicle charging, like in costs, and vehicle charging in terms of how it's gonna work.
Just on the health scrutiny thing, can we explicitly say that that includes COVID? Because I think when it gets through the system, people will forget that that's.
Okay,
part
fine.
of the-
Okay.
So we say that in the request.
Right,
So do you want that as with the report in draft? So you want us to hold off going to consultation?
no, I think, no, I think it's good, go. I think if you wanna, you've had a good discussion tonight, I think there's been lots of food for thought. Might wanna take some of those, improve the document. The major one I got was Simon's one, Councillor Rush's, about the data all needs to be updated.
Yeah.
I think that from us as a Scrutiny Commission, I see no problem in that going forward to consultation, generally, yeah? Agreed? Yep. So, yeah,
Updated information as you.
yeah. So we need, number two, we need a strategy from the environment people on the vehicle charging regime and on including how we're going to put vehicle charging infrastructure. So it's charging and charging.
I think there's a cabinet report going next month, maybe in
Okay,
April,
right.
like that.
Aaron, can you link up with that? That might create that one. We need a campaign. I've got something about road user charging over bridges.
Road user charging instead of bridge tolls.
Right,
We should be campaigning for.
Do you mean?
okay. I think that's,
Something we'll look at.
yeah,
Need to think
Right.
about it.
I think that's a recommendation back to John as the political lead on this about please provide some information or an update on the next stage on that. That will go to you.
We need to think about it.
The next one is one for our environment colleagues with the potential strategy of 80% LTAs across Newham. What's the impact assessment for Newham? Because I am using Councillor Odo's word, I'm skeptical whether the research we are using as a local authority has gathered all the impact for that. Because 80% LTNs across Newham, that's a major shift. I'm not sure we've captured all the negatives as well as the positives on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, they do come in as they're not permanent, they don't come in as permanent, so I think all that is, may well be looked.
They can go away?
Well,
Tell me an LTN which has been taken away.
well, I'm just saying.
Exactly, raise my point.
On that one, is there any way of because obviously Newham as a borough, every part of the borough is different and the needs are different. So if there is a consultation and if there is a majority resident against it, are we saying that LTN is going to be taken over? Because obviously some places there is a need for LTN and there's some places residents don't need an LTN. So I don't know how we're going to do this.
Let's take, we asked for the impact assessment of, well, the strategic intent is 80% of the borough having LTN on its roads. We've asked for an impact assessment of that, right? I can see what you're saying. Let's finesse that when it eventually goes through to the environment colleagues, but I capture the point. The next.
We get the request for the Wood Grange and Cape.
Let me get there.
Sorry,
Let me get there. See the finger? It says Balmoral Road, LTN implementation date. Right? Got that? The next one is really, John, you'll get this to you and to Mark. Can we have a comprehensive communication strategy on air quality, please, which is external to the resident to explain the benefits from them? Obviously, it makes it easy for you. Once you're doing the consultation, you've got a tool which you can communicate with. But I do think there's some good work being done. I think we're hiding it under our bushel. Do you want to know what that bushel is? I don't know. Hat. Looked blank face.
No,
It would be sent all these action points, yeah?
Yeah.
Talking about the Wood Grange and Capel LTN, sorry.
Yeah.
So now,
Yeah. The next one here is the Folkestone Road Depot. So when do we need to get the funding for the infrastructure to hit the 2030 date?
That's clear.
Clear? The next one, John, is, I think it will come back to you on Silverton Tunnel. Can we have an external communications campaign, which is letting us know what you're doing at the moment? Because I didn't know about this reference group. Know what that is. Residents may need to know that, and for what next. So you mentioned the issue, the hardy perennial, at the lots of movement on my leg. Can we just chill? about the air quality monitor and that thing, right? But you'll get these anyway. For that. Right, committee, are we happy with that?
Yes, just to be absolutely clear, we said, notwithstanding the requests, just in terms of the underlying resolution today, we're noting the.
Good to go for consultation.
And it's good to go, yeah, and obviously with Councillor Usher's
caveats on the data.
Comment on the data.
Yep.
And the other
Mark's got that. Okay. Got questions for colleagues. Have you enjoyed your time at Scrutiny today? Yes. Wow. You liar, John. Can I say thank you for taking time out from your families and it's late, it's 9 o'clock.
Thank you for your questions.
No, thank you. And we'll let the committee go. Before we go, I need to things we've done.
Are you need to close the line?
Yeah, no. Also, just to say, I moved the report, note the report, and it's good to have the resolution. Thank you very much. I'm going to go on to item 7. Next item is the work plan. In addition to April's item on sustainable transport and major projects and highways management, which will answer some of the questions here tonight, will ensure that the fixed estate charge is incorporated into the scrutiny work plan for 2024-25. In full council motion on the fixed estate charge, we will explore how best to gather relevant information, including engagement with key stakeholders such as the LGA, LLDC, with the aim of holding a full public meeting on the fixed estate charge in the municipal year. We are currently developing a structured approach to gathering evidence, which includes formal report requests to council departments, the GLA and LLDC. Additionally, we'll be exploring ways to capture the views of affected groups, such as business and residents. We will continue to refine this approach in collaboration with members ahead of our next meeting to ensure a full and clear and agreed framework for scrutiny's response to the full council motion. Okay. Now, on that, I've done some draft stuff which I've sent to Aaron. We'll send that out shortly. But when we send it out to you, the key thing we've got to do is it's 5. Initially, it's, who, when, what, how, what, right? We've got to find out what it is. Once we get that, we build along the program. But I will say, whoever is in the chair next year has got to incorporate this into other things. And I would say, not to tie the hands of a future chair, I suspect there are other things we may need to do alongside the fixed estate charge. That's got to be worked in. Also, I would say, looking at it, it's about taxation and all sorts of things, and whether it goes to another body to be funding. We've got to scope out what are our areas of concern, our areas of impact on those same areas for the LGA and for the LLDC. I'm going to shut up. Any comments?
Just on the fixed estate charge inquiry, Shobham Manor Residents Association have done a lot of work on this. Obviously, they can attend as members of the public, but I really think it's worth us inviting them to be a witness. They've the amount of work that they've done on this. They're at the stage of talking to lawyers. They've done a lot, and it's really worth including them.
Great.
Just on the work plan generally, off my question about the local plan, we last saw it before it went to public consultation, or as part of public consultation. It will have changed in response to that, and I think the Mayor of London had some objections around the social housing policy. I think we need to look at it again before either us or Overview need to look at it again before it goes to council.
Would it be helpful, or do we ask a note from officers on the challenges from the Mayor of London, rather than revisiting the whole thing?
And any other significant changes that have happened.
Yeah. So can we have?
Maybe it should go to regeneration, because obviously that's changed to another committee now, but
yeah,
just one.
Okay, so it should come back to this committee because it was us. So can we get a note from colleagues in planning on Mayor of London's changes and any major changes from the local plan, especially around the social housing criteria?
And can our report on it go to full council with the local plan?
Yeah,
it goes to the full council.
Right. Okay. That's good. What I will say, so when we send out the fixed estate charge work, a plea, let's not expand it. Let me explain what I mean. We need to be quite concise to get the nuts of it first, and then we can expand at a future point, right? So like, can we be mindful of that? And also the thing I'm looking at is about taxation. We might not have the powers to recommend taxation, which is the Treasury thing. And also, if we're asking for someone else to pay it, it might be out of our peer view. And the reason why I say this, there was a recent scrutiny recommendation about hotel tax. I saw an answer somewhere from the Treasury. It was relating to the farmers and that they kicked it back and said the Treasury decides on taxation and nobody else. So I've just put that there for consideration, not for decision making. So that's the work programme. 2 items. The date of the next meeting is the 15th of April, which is more sustainable. And Shantu, some of the questions you asked, Shantu, I think the next meeting might be better place to answer some of the points you raised. Top of my head, I think that might be a place. The next meeting is on the 15th of April. Before we close any other business, was everybody happy what we discussed today? Did everyone get a bite of the cherry? I think there were some really good recommendations coming forward, quite a lot, actually. And thank you. I've enjoyed it, especially on the data, Simon, on the Sabia about hate crime, and also about the system. I got something out of the meeting, so hopefully we all did. And you got 5 questions, Thelma, so please don't have a go at me. You did better than Nate today, right? Take that as a winner. Better than Nate, right?
Is that the benchmark?
That's the benchmark. You're the new Nate. You better watch out, Nate. You got competition, right? Yeah. You better change your name. Everyone happy with the meeting?
Yes.
Great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. And are we okay to close the meeting?
Chair, just note the time.
I note the time at